Greetings, friends. Welcome to another ministry of the Victory Hour. This ministry here on YouTube is brought to you by the Lord's people at Falwell Assembly in Foster, Rhode Island. My name is Jim Gallagher. I am the pastor at Falwell Assembly, and welcome to our YouTube channel. If you want to contact me for any reason, to discuss any issues, or you want spiritual advice, or want to complain about what I'm teaching, you can email me, info@clavellassembly.com. Or you can write to me, The Victory Hour, or you can address it to Falwell Assembly, P.O. Box 222, Foster, Rhode Island, 02825. Well, look, this is going to be part 7 in our series that we've entitled The Errors of Dispensationalism. My goal in this series has not been to refute those errors, it's just to point out some of them. This 7-part series has by no means covered the fullness of the different errors bound up in dispensational theology. But I'm trying to hit some high points because a lot of people don't even understand what dispensationalism is. And that's true of some people who attend churches that are dispensational. They've never heard the term. If you ask them if they're dispensational, they wouldn't know. And as I've said to you before the other day, because we've entered into a non-doctrinal age, a lot of churches, a lot of Christians, they believe the result of dispensationalism, secret rapture, 7-year tribulation, 1,000-year millennium, but they really don't know that much about it, and they're not that interested in it. It's more about feeling good in Jesus, Him giving me what I want, the mega church movement, emerging church, and we've become very non-doctrinal. So I need to identify what dispensationalism is. I'm trying to hit some of the areas where I think there is error. And I think in some of these areas that I've been covering, even someone who believes that they're an ardent dispensationalist ought to say, no, wait a minute. Maybe so-and-so said they believe that as a dispensationalist, but I can't believe that. Good for you. But guess what? You have more of a contradiction with your own theological system than that person who's stating the crazy truth or the crazy non-truth. And look, someone in one of the comments said, well, we don't get our doctrine from John Nelson Darby or Cyrus Ingerson Schofield. We get it from the Apostle Paul. We get it from the Bible. Well, I understand that's what you think, but that's a nice try. Look, how am I supposed to represent what dispensationalists believe without quoting their most noted, reputable authorities that are recognized and revered within the dispensational community? I have to go to them to say, look, this is what they believe. And so who have I been quoting from? Well, I've been quoting from Cyrus Ingerson Schofield of the Schofield Reference Bible. That's huge. I'm not sure you can go to a higher authority in the potpourri of dispensationalism. John Nelson Darby, not really. Most people aren't that familiar with him. Schofield did the most damage with his Bible. And you've got others that have done a lot of damage as well. And so, on today's broadcast, well, I guess we're not a broadcast, right? This is a YouTube. I'm not airing over the airwaves. But I'm going to read to you from 2 books. The first book is this one, and it's in rough shape, as you can see. It's rough. I've had this book for quite a few years, given to me by a dispensational minister. This is Dwight Pentecost from Dallas Theological Seminary, professor of theology. He may have been the chair of theology at the time. I don't think he's there anymore. I don't think. Maybe he is, but I doubt he's alive still. But this book is the go-to book for dispensation. This was given to me by a dispensational minister to prove that I was wrong about these things. And I'm so happy he gave it to me. I have quoted from this book over the last 20 years, over the last just about 30 years, on radio, on TV, and through the pulpit at Falwell. And I'm not quoting from it to say, it seems like dispensationalism is true, and that's what this book is about. No, I'm quoting from it to say, look, this is bad. So I'm quoting some of these very noted and highly respected dispensationalists to show you where this doctrine takes you if you bring it to its theological and proper logical conclusion. It may not be a biblical conclusion, but these men are coming to proper theological, logical conclusions within the context of dispensationalism. So some of you who may be dispensational may hear me and say, oh, but I can't agree with what he says. Oh, right. But here, it sounds pretty crazy. Why is he saying something that sounds so crazy? Do you think he really wants to? There's a reason. He's being consistent with the theology. I'm trying to show you some of those things. So today's part 7. I don't think there'll be a part 8. And I'll tell you what, I got to say this while I'm thinking of it. So my wife and I are going away for a little bit. And as we're away, I won't be able to make any new additions for the Victory Hour here on the YouTube. So what I will do when I'm going, and so I'll be here. Well, I'll be here today. I'm not sure if later in the week, the next installment, I may substitute, because I won't be around to make any YouTubes, I may substitute a sermon that was preached from the pulpit of Clavel. And I may play that sermon here. It'll be a nice hour long, however long it is, and you'll have that instead. I'm not going to leave you high and dry. So when I'm going, the next edition, I believe, I'll be going, and so you'll have a sermon from Clavel, and there probably will be one more after that, the beginning of the following week. Well, I'll do the same thing. You'll have a different sermon that I will post that I think will be useful for you to see and to listen to. Now, it may be that I'll do one more part in this series on the errors of dispensationalism. Maybe I'll do one more. I don't know if I'll have the time, but this will be part 7. I think it's the last part. And I want to read to you from Acts chapter 2, just to get the ball rolling. Day of Pentecost, Peter is preaching to the Jews that are gathered before him, and this is what he says to them. Verse 29, Men and brethren, let me freely speak unto you of the patriarch David, for he is both dead and buried, and his sepulchre is with us unto this day. Well, that would seem like it's obvious. David's dead, and you can go visit his grave. Okay, what are you telling us that for? We all know that. He's got a theological reasoning. He's got a theological reason. He's referencing 2 Samuel chapter 7, verses 12 and onward, which is the original promise of the Messiah of Israel who was to come, who would sit on David's throne and establish an eternal, everlasting kingdom. Peter is referencing that promise in 2 Samuel 7 on the day of Pentecost, filled with the Holy Ghost, and this is what he says. David is both dead and buried, and his sepulchre is with us unto this day. Therefore, being a prophet, David, and knowing that God had sworn with an oath to him, in 2 Samuel 7, that of the fruit of his loins, David's seed, according to the flesh, as Jesus was, the fruit of David's loin, according to the flesh, through Mary, because obviously not through Joseph, he would raise up Christ or Messiah to sit on his throne. Who's his throne? David's throne. The promise to David was that David's seed would sit on David's throne and establish an everlasting eternal kingdom. 2 Samuel chapter 7, verse 12. Peter is quoting it on the day of Pentecost. And speaking of that promise of David's seed establishing an everlasting throne, this is the promise of the Messianic kingdom. Of course, it would initially begin to be fulfilled in Solomon, Rehoboam, and the succession of the kings of Judah. But then God would put a blood curse on that line and say, none of these men's seeds will sit on my throne. Well, that's almost like to destroy the promise he made to David. No. What he was doing was making it impossible for any impostor to come as Christ, as Messiah, because Jesus would literally be of the seed of David through Mary, his mother, but an heir to the royal line of the throne of Judah through his adoption by Joseph as his father. Now, there's a whole story to tell with that. I don't have time to tell it now. But Peter's saying, look, God made a promise to David that of the fruit of his loins, he would raise up the Messiah to sit on David's throne. Now listen to listen to what Peter says here. He seeing this promise given to David, he seeing this before spake of the resurrection of Christ. David's seed, the Messiah, sitting on David's throne to establish an eternal kingdom, the promise given to David, which is to be fulfilled while David sleeps with his fathers, not when he's resurrected for the millennium so he can enter into it like the dispensationalists say, but this kingdom is established while David sleeps with his fathers. But he, seeing this promise before, spake not of the second coming of Christ. At the end of the tribulation, then he establishes the kingdom finally, like the dispensationalists say. No, he, seeing this promise before, spake of the resurrection of Christ. It is at the resurrection of Christ, in his ascension back to the heavenly Father, where he sat at the Father's right hand, that he sat on David's throne. You say, wait a minute, hold on. I know this is new to many. Listen very carefully. Go to my series here on YouTube on this channel. Christ now sits on David's throne. 7 parts, a load of scriptures designed to prove that when Jesus, the Messiah, sits on David's throne, it is not supposed to be in fake Israel in the Middle East, in the fake Zionist state. It's in heaven. The throne of David is in heaven. When the sons of Adam sat on the throne of David, it was in Jerusalem. But when the Son of God sits on it, it's in the heavens where David's throne originated. You say, what are you talking about? Go. I'm not going to repeat that whole series here. Go, if you're really serious about defending your dispensational beliefs, you've got to go to that series, 7-part series. Christ now sits on David's throne. Check it out. That's what Peter's saying here. Now, I read that because, I'll tell you why. I'm going to read from Dwight Pentecost. And just so you know, I'm not blowing smoke as to what the dispensationalists teach in this regard. Here's Dwight Pentecost, a huge fish in a huge pond, chair of theology at Dallas Theological Seminary. This is what he says. This is on page 109, in a chapter entitled The Davidic Covenant. He's talking about the kingdom of Messiah when he speaks of the Davidic covenant. And he's actually quoting John Walvoord, the president, or the one-time president, of Dallas Theological Seminary. Well, I mean, how much bigger fish can I quote? And this is what Walvoord writes, as quoted by Pentecost. The New Testament has in all 59 references to David. It also has many references to the present session of Christ. In other words, over the last 2,000 years. A search of the New Testament reveals that there is not one reference connecting the present session of Christ with the Davidic throne. Not one. How about the one I just read? Peter said that the fulfillment of Messiah sitting on David's throne took place in the resurrection of Christ. Because why was Christ rising from the dead? Where was he going? He's going back to the Heavenly Father at his right hand to sit on his throne, David's throne, the throne of Jehovah. Listen to the 7-part series. Don't try and refute that from just what I'm saying today. You want me to refute dispensationalism's understanding of the Davidic throne? I'm not going to even try to do it in like 10 minutes. Go to the 7-part series. And there's more to that series that I didn't even bring into the series. But that is plenty. 7 parts. He's saying there's not one reference. Later on, this is still Walvoord, he says the New Testament is totally lacking in positive teaching that the throne of the Father in heaven is to be identified with the Davidic throne. The which is just totally not true. The inference is plain that Christ is seated on the Father's throne. Well, that's technically not true. He's seated at the right hand of the Father. Even though I know Christ and the Father are one, you can't try and explain to the nth degree the doctrine of the Trinity. I don't try. I don't need to try. I believe what the Bible reveals, whether I can fully explain it or not. But it's the throne at the right hand of the Father. That's the throne of David, the throne of Jehovah. Christ is seated on the Father's throne, but that is not at all the same as being seated on the throne of David. And he's saying there's nothing in the New Testament that teaches that. The whole 7-part series is just to bring you passage after passage after passage that proves that. And then he says, Dwight Pentecost makes this commentary. He says, the New Testament never relates the kingdom promised to David to Christ's present session. Now, I got to do more than I just gave you now to maybe prove that to you dispensationalists. Go to the 7-part series, okay, on our YouTube channel. Christ now sits on David's throne. Well, let me go a little bit further. See, I'm trying to give you some of the conclusions of dispensationalism by its most respected authors and teachers to see you some of the shocking things they will say, and that might jar loose some of the mortar and the cement that is cured. And you say, wait a minute, wait, I don't believe that. Why don't you? Your greatest teachers do. And you do realize you're going to be more inconsistent with your theology if you don't believe like them. Maybe there's a good reason to raise some questions here. Now look at this next one. This is under a chapter entitled The New Covenant. And by the way, the New Covenant in dispensational thinking is the Messianic kingdom. We're not living in the New Covenant according to dispensationalism, which is just shockingly unbelievable. But their view is the New Covenant is the covenant God made with Israel that's going to be under Messiah, and that's reserved for after the 7-year tribulation. That's the 1,000-year millennium. And this is what he says. Oh, I'm sorry. This note is not about that. I'm jumping ahead. This note, well, let me read this note. He's commenting on Ephesians 2. Now, I'm going to skip that for time's sake. It's a really bad, it's a good one to quote, a bad one to quote, depends how you look at it. Well, I'm not going to have the time. I don't know. Do I need to do a part 8 in this series? I don't know. Let's jump to what I was talking about, the millennium. Let me save some time, because I can go back and hit some of these I didn't read when we go to do a particular subject anyway. Just trying to show you there's some massive problems in dispensational theology, dispensational eschatology particularly. This is a chapter, page 507. The chapter is entitled The Government and the Governed in the Millennium. And this is what we read. Israel as Messiah's subjects in the millennium. This is like a subheading. Israel as Messiah's subjects in the millennium. And this is what he says. Israel will become the subjects of the king's reign. In order to be subjects, Israel will have been converted and restored to the land as has already been shown. So in the millennium, according to Dallas Theological Seminary, or at least according to Dwight Pentecost, chair of theology at Dallas Theological Seminary, Israel will have been converted, restored to the land when they go into the millennium. They've all become Christians. And then we're told, and I'm skipping some things that aren't necessary, she, that is Israel, will be exalted above the Gentiles. Okay. But, well, hold on to your butt. She will be exalted above the Gentiles. A little bit later, he says Israel will be beautified to bring glory to Jehovah. And then the next subheading is the Gentiles in the millennium. So he's talking about Israel in the millennium. Then the next subheading is he talks about the Gentiles in the millennium. Now, there's something you got to understand here. Let me jump ahead in this section, and he says this. The Gentiles that are in the millennium will have experienced conversion prior to admission. So the Jews are saved, they enter the millennium. They got the land. They have dominance over the Gentiles. As far as the Gentiles in the millennium, we're told by Dwight Pentecost that the Gentiles that are in the millennium will have experienced conversion prior to admission. They're Christians. So now you got Christian Gentiles and Christian Jews living in the kingdom of Christ. That's right, the dispensationalists say. Well, what will that be like? Well, let's find out. Let's see. He says the Gentiles will be Israel's servants during that age. Well, but the Gentiles will have experienced conversion prior to entering into that age in that kingdom. That's right. And the Gentiles will be Israel's servants during that age. So wait a minute. God is a respecter of persons all over again. Oh, for the last 2,000 years in the church age, the dispensationalists will admit God is no respecter of persons. But when we get back to the millennium, oh, yes, he is, according to dispensationalism. The Gentiles will be Israel's servants. Wait a minute. So the Christian Gentiles will be the slaves and servants of the Christian Jews. And a lot of dispensationalists would probably say, well, yeah, okay, I'm happy with that. Hold on. The nations which usurped authority over Israel in past ages find that downtrodden people exalted and themselves in subjection in their kingdom. The Gentiles that are in the millennium will have experienced conversion prior to admission. And then he says, come ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom. Oh, he says, these Gentiles that are going to be Israel's slaves, these Christian Gentiles that are going to be the slaves of the Christian Jews. These are the Gentiles. He says, these, quote, these Gentiles are those to whom the invitation is given in Matthew 25:34. Quote, come ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. So when you American, Italian, Irish, German, whatever kind of Christian you are, that whatever your ethnic background, but you're Gentile stock, and you came to receive Christ as your Savior, and you thought there was no longer division between Jew and Gentile. Well, there's going to be another division when you get to the dispensational millennium. And to these Gentiles, you and I, that at the second coming of Christ, the Lord says to us, come ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom, the Jewish kingdom, prepared for you from the foundation of the world. And when you get there, you can be Israel's slaves, second-class citizens. There's so much I can read in this. But that's enough to wet your whistle. That's Dwight Pentecost and John Wolford. Next on the docket, what time I got left? Jerry Falwell and the Jews by Merrill Simon, who is a Jewish rabbi who wrote a set of questions to Jerry Falwell. And Jerry Falwell could read the questions, and he was allowed the time he needed to write up his answers. These are written answers, not speaking off the cuff and speaking loosely and, oh, I misspoke. You can mull it over. And believe me, when he's answering the Jews, Jerry Falwell, the radical Zionist, when he's answering the Jewish rabbis, he's being very careful with his words. He's going to be very particular. Let me read a few quotes from the dispensationalist Jerry Falwell, whom a lot of people are familiar with. Here's a question on, well, this is page 8. The rabbi asked this question. So despite their chosenness, wait a minute, does this question begin the previous page? No. Okay. Speaking of the Jews, despite their chosenness, you don't see the Jews in any way superior to other peoples? He says no. A friend of mine wrote a book several years ago entitled Christianity is Jewish. Now I'm skipping things, but this is all answer to that question. But here's what he says, and this is what I want you to hear. To me, as a traditional Christian, well, let me skip that. This is the heart and soul of it. The question is, despite the fact that you, Jerry Falwell, see the Jews as God's chosen people, you don't see the Jews as superior to other peoples? This is what he says. Neither Christianity nor Judaism is superior to the other. In my opinion, both are dependent upon the other and in need of each other. Judaism is yet looking for Messiah. Christianity believes Messiah has already come. But regardless, the Messiah being looked for by the Jews and being worshipped by the Christians as having already come is the Messiah of the Old Testament, the book precious to both Jews, Christians, and Jews. It is not inevitable that one religion be played off against the other. Did you hear the outright sellout of Christ in that? He says neither Christianity nor Judaism is superior to the other. Well, listen. Judaism denies that Jesus is the Christ. Judaism denies that Jesus is the Son of God. Judaism denies that he is God in the flesh and Israel's Messiah. Who is a liar but he that denieth that Jesus is the Messiah, the Christ? He is Antichrist that denieth the Father and the Son. Well, Judaism denies that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of a living God. Yet, Jerry Falwell, I was going to say Schofield. Jerry Falwell, in responding to the rabbi, one of God's chosen people, which makes Jerry Falwell tremble, he says, neither Christianity nor Judaism is superior to the other. If Christianity is built upon the ultimate truth that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of a living God, and Judaism denies that, which is the position of Antichrist, how could Christianity not be superior to Judaism? Isn't this a massive sellout due to his radical devotion to Christian Zionism? It most certainly is. It most certainly is. I can see I'm going to have to do another part of this. I'm going to have to do part 8. I'm sorry. And I am definitely going to finish this at part 8. I don't want to leave any of this out. And I'll have to get back to this question. Well, let me read this. He says, in my opinion, both Christianity and Judaism are dependent upon the other and in need of each other. Judaism is yet looking for Messiah. In other words, they've denied that the Messiah has come. Christianity believes Messiah has already come. But regardless, as if, well, that's just, a minor detail. But regardless, the Messiah being looked for by the Jews and being worshipped by Christians as having already come is the Messiah of the Old Testament. As if to say, see, we're on the same page. What manipulation and compromise. It's his dispensational eschatology and radical Christian Zionism that is causing him to speak the doctrines of Antichrist. Jerry Falwell. He says, obviously, the Orthodox rabbi feels the Christian's Messiah has not come, and therefore the Christian has no basic and vital faith. Yeah. Obviously, the traditional Christian minister believes that Messiah has come, and the Orthodox rabbi did not recognize him, but is yet looking for Messiah to come. It's not that they didn't recognize him, but they were envious of him. Neither view, Falwell says, is anti-Semitic or anti-Christian. So wait a minute. When the Orthodox rabbi denies that Jesus is the Christ, that's not anti-Christian? 1 John 2:22. Who is a liar, but he that denieth Jesus is the Christ. He is Antichrist that denieth the Father and the Son. He says neither view is anti-Semitic or anti-Christian. Both are matters of interpretation, and based upon the views that each have derived from the book of the books, by the Bible. The sellout of Jerry Falwell, a dispensationalist of note. Now listen, I know I don't get my dispensational doctrine from Falwell. I don't get it from John Walvoord. I don't get it from Dwight Pentecost. I don't get it from Cyrus Higgins Schofield. I don't get it from this guy, that guy. Well, where do you get it from? Now, you say the Bible? Well, we'll get in the Bible. We'll see if it's there. But how can I establish what dispensationalists believe without quoting them? And who should I quote? Obscure ministers you've never heard of? Or the most famous and highly respected ones? See? That's what I'm doing. So one more edition in this series, The Errors of Dispensationalism, and then we'll take a break for 2 or 3 rounds, and then we'll get back and start going into specifics of some of these things. And I pray that this will be a blessing to you. If you're dispensational, don't take offense at what I'm saying. I know it's hard to hear, and you're going to take it personal. I don't mean it personal. I want you to hear what I have to say. I used to go to a dispensationalist, fundamentalist church. Like, I've been there. Let me bare my soul and point to the Word of God. We've got to go. Time's up. This is Jim Gallagher reminding you in the words of our blessed Lord and Savior. I don't know if I'll be here next time, but if I am, we got one more part of this series. Otherwise, you'll hear a sermon. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.